This is Eastmans Elevated podcast. I have on great guests that are really knowledgeable, consistently successful. We're able to dive deep down the rabbit holes of these different subject matters of shooting, of physical fitness, of mental toughness and drive. All the different skills that make up a complete hunter that you can become.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Got a brand new podcast for you. So today I have one of my all-time favorites, my buddy Dan Pickar. So he's my bow hunting brother over there at Eastmans. The guy is just so proficient with a bow in his hands. He's always getting it done, and I just love getting together with him and having conversations and in-depth conversations about bow hunting and about theories, and so today is a great one. So there's multiple different ways to kill a bull, and these different ways, they all work. But over the years, I've adopted these techniques and these strategies for hunting elk, and so, you know, I just wanted to go into it. Dan's kind of adopted the same strategies, or maybe they differ here and there, but kind of the same tactics that I use, you know, to be silent and to spot and stalk these bulls, to cut them off, to coyote the herd, to know when to move in. And so today we just break it all down on the podcast. So it's a great one, highly informative, all about elk hunting. Oh, and there is a little bear hunting in the beginning. I touched bases with him, and he had just finished up his bear hunt, and so he had a wild encounter with his bear. And Dan's a great storyteller too. So I asked him to tell me the story of his bear and his bear season, and so we kind of go through that first. But then from there on out, it's all elk. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know I did. And we'll get right into it. I just want to thank my sponsors real quick. So I want to thank Sportsman's Warehouse. Sportsman's Warehouse is a great company. It's so advantageous for a hunter to be able to go into a store, touch and feel and try on clothing, to be able to look through the glass, to be able to see and hold, you know, the whatever, the bow, the rifle, and then they get the right people in the right places. And so they've got a knowledgeable staff that's passionate about the outdoors, and they've got one in every department, from bow to rifle, you know, all the way through. They try to staff the right people for the right jobs. And I always mention my good buddy Chase. He's up in the Fairbanks store up there, and I just know how hard they're always working to make their store the absolute best. So if you need any gear this season, especially as you're traveling to these hunts, last-minute items, make sure to Google where a Sportsman's Warehouse is there close, and stop by and get what you need. And thanks to them for sponsoring the podcast. I also want to thank Taito Knives. Just the best ultra sharp, lightweight knife on the market. I absolutely love these things. So, yeah, I just love the replaceable blade. I love how razor sharp it is. And so as this conversation's all about elk, like, I can process an elk, you know, 1 to 2 blades, usually a couple on an elk. Their hide is so thick, but it just keeps that razor sharp edge on your knife. And I used to have to pack knives and sharpeners, and not anymore. Now it's just ounces to take in, you know, brand new blades and the knife in there to process your game. So I absolutely love them. I use them all the time. They have some new products on the market. If you prefer a stiffer, harder blade for some of the tougher jobs in there, whether it's getting the hip bone, whether it's getting the head off, they do make an ultra sharp, solid blade knife that's a great one. So make sure to check them out, and thanks again to them for all their support on the podcast, Taito Knives. Okay, over there at Eastman's, yeah, we're all getting really excited for our hunts, and we got just a bunch of really good content to release to you guys, a bunch of good podcasts, and I'm always working on the next guest and the next recording, and trying to get you guys out the best content I can. Also, Dan Pickar, he takes the head on the Beyond the Grid. Well, it's him and Guy Eastman and the rest of the staff, but Dan really does a lot for Beyond the Grid. He does a lot of episodes. He's got some amazing footage. Make sure to just search on YouTube Beyond the Grid, and you can watch some of Dan's hunts on there. And then we've got a bunch of good hunts coming up on Beyond the Grid. So I'll be sure to let you know what they are and when they're coming out. But check that out. Dan does a good job, and check out his social media too. He runs the Beyond the Grid page there, and just releases some great content. So check him out there. And with that, let's get this podcast rolling. So bears real quick, and then everything elk. So enjoy.
Morning, Brian.
Hey, good morning, Dan. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Man, that car's sure looking nice, huh?
Yeah. Plugging away on her. She's coming along pretty good. Just have to put the fenders on and a few details, and it'll be pretty much wrapped up.
Right on. How many man hours you figure you got into that car?
Way too many.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
probably 400 or so.
man, that's crazy. Well, it's looking really sharp. It'd be fun to cruise it around this summer if you get it all done, huh?
Yeah. No, hopefully I'll be driving around by August, and pretty much done. There'll be some details still left to do, but yeah, for sure I'll be driving it in August. That's the goal.
Well, you'll be driving it to elk camp then.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thanks for being on this morning. I wanted to get into talking elk hunting, kind of our style of elk hunting. There's so much information out there in calling, and I know you call a little bit as well in thicker cover, and we'll kind of get into it this morning. But first, I got to hear about this bear that you closed out on the end of the season. What a great bear, man. He looked like he had a giant pumpkin head on him, and I think you said he was an older bear, huh?
Yeah, the warden said that he thought he was at least 15, and yeah, his teeth were all worn down and really nice hide, but his meat was kind of dilapidated. He was pretty skinny. I don't know, just from wintertime, I guess. And man, the hair was really nice on him, but just a skinny bear and an old bear.
Oh wow, so he was getting skinny, he was going downhill. Those bears, they just live longer than deer and elk. So it's not unusual. Well, it is unusual to kill a 15-year-old bear because you don't kill that many that are that size, but a lot of times it takes them 8, 9, 10 years to be fully mature.
Yep, for sure. Everything just takes longer life cycle, and yeah, it was a kind of a weird deal too. I by happenstance, after I wounded him and I killed him, and I was skinning him, and I cut his intestines in half because they were kind of hanging out and just full of worms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just worms squiggling out everywhere. It's disgusting.
Oh my gosh. That is pretty gross. I
Yeah.
wonder if that's why he was so skinny, is those worms were just taking all his food.
Yeah, no, I bet so. That played a huge role. And like you said, when those animals they get that old, usually they end up getting worms at some point in their life. And so yeah, they probably have, all those old bears have worms, and they probably most of them have trichinosis too, for all I know.
Man, oh man. Well, you did that bear a favor, getting skinny like that. Like he wasn't gonna make it through the winter much longer, especially when the food source is so good right now.
Exactly. And you know what, Brian? I think that bear just came out of hibernation. I really do. Just how he was, I don't know, just much on the grass, and he was right below just a big avalanche chute and snowbank, and uh, I don't know, the hair was pristine, like he'd just been, in the den all winter and hasn't been rubbing or anything. And this was June, like the 10th, I think, or maybe the 12th actually.
Ah,
And so
wild.
yeah, I sure think that some of these older bears, they find the best feed in the fall, and they have it all figured out. They have their den sites figured out, and then they don't come out of their den if they have a good fall. They don't come out of their den until June.
Wow. I think you're right. I think just different bears come out at different times depending on the elevation where they den and the food
Yep,
source. And I've definitely seen, bears come out early, but it's
yep,
also like it takes a while for bear season to get kicking off where you can really count on all the bears being out and on the food source. So man, I think you're right, and especially like that late winter that we had where it kept cold. I wouldn't want to be out in that snow or that rain with not much feed around either, you know?
yep.
I
Exactly. But yeah, it
I
just depends on the habitat, I guess, too.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen or I've heard. I don't know if this is true, but like on their pads, I've heard guys talk about how you can look at their pads and that'll tell you how long they've been outside the den, because they'll get hair that grows in between their pads or something and really shows that hair. And once they
Yep.
get out and start walking around, they have it all worn down and worn off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, that makes sense too. I wondered that, and the claws, like his claws were like little needles, like perfectly grown out to the tips. I was like, what has this bear been hibernating for 2 years or what? But
Just been asleep up there in the mountains.
yeah.
So it got pretty hairy. What's wild is I had the same scenario this year where I had one charge me. I had to shoot it with the pistol. I was not the best shot. I think I shot 10 times. I grazed him once and hit him twice. Like, it
Okay.
happened quick. And I've actually had two black bears do this to me. The first one I hit with a second arrow as he was coming at me. This one I started bringing my pistol just religiously, and I just owe it to myself and my family. And it is, black bears are dangerous game, and especially when you
Yes.
hit one with an arrow, you're in such close proximity that even if you hit him right, like, he's still got enough energy to get to you. He's still got enough go to get to you. And mine was a situation where I was just positioned downhill from this bear, ran an arrow through him at 28 yards. I couldn't have placed a better arrow on him. I double lunged him, but he spun in circles, roaring and biting at his arrow. I always, like, every time I always shoot a bear, I go, oh no, what did I just do? Because they just freak out. It's not like shooting a deer or an elk. They
Right.
roar like a lion and bite at that arrow. And then I was just downhill in the country, like, really, like, pushed him right towards me, and so he just came down at me, and I had to defend my position. And once I started shooting, it was almost like he locked onto me, like he was coming at me. And I just kept firing. I threw a lot of lead his way. I never looked at my front sight till after I hit him. I need a better shot process with my pistol, but it's a little bit a part of the game with the bow and arrow. It's kind of what me and you like. So you got to tell me the story on this bear, the stalk and the shot, and then we'll get into elk hunting. But I got to hear about it. So you caught this bear in June.
Yeah. I'll try to make it a condensed version because it's kind of long-winded. But yeah, I found him in a slide where you'd expect to find a bear, and it was 7:30 in the evening, and made a stalk up there, just perfect. I mean, that bear was handed to me on a platter, as easy as you could ever wanted it. Got on him, coming up from below. Started raining. The wind really started just dumping off the mountain and down the slide in my face, perfect. And I don't know. I got up close and had some wind, and I was breathing a fair amount, but not that bad. But I just made a poor shot. I just hit him like 3 inches low, and I knew it when I shot that it wasn't a perfect shot, and that it was a little low and maybe a little back. And I was like, I don't know. The heart is low and back on the brisket, and I was just kind of contemplating everything. And I think I had an arrow in him shortly after 8 o'clock in the evening, and it's dark by 9 up there in those deep canyons. And so I just pulled out. I told my camera guy, I was like, well, we're out of here. We'll come back first thing in the morning and pick up the blood trail. And it started raining a little bit, and I was a little worried about that. But yeah, we got back in there the next day. And long story short, I was searching for, I think I was into it 6 hours gritting, and I found 5 different beds of where this thing laid down. There's a pile of blood in each bed. There's actually fairly good blood to begin with, so I felt better about my shot after seeing all that blood. But it petered out pretty quick, and after the rain and everything, and it got to the point at the end of the afternoon where I told my camera guy, I was like, well, let's split up. We're either going to find him dead at this point or he's going to be gone. And so I was like, okay. So we had a kind of a rendezvous point down at the bottom of the slide at the bottom of the mountain where I was going to meet up with my camera guy. And we split up, and not 2 minutes later, I run into this bear, and I knew it was him right away. And he was in a little avalanche slide that I had already checked 3 times. I don't know where he came from. He must have been on the other side, but I'm trying to get my camera guy's attention, and I couldn't get his attention, but I didn't want to let this bear out of my sight in fear that I wouldn't see him again, or I wouldn't be able to recover him or, finish off the TV show or whatever. So 75 yards at this point, I was like, well, I just got to get another shot into him. So I hit him at 75, a little far back through the guts. And he just kind of walked up the hill into the brush, a bunch of snowberry and Doug fir on this little ridge, and kind of the same thing. It was an approach from down the hill, and he was on his feet. And so I dropped my backpack, and I had my pistol in one hand and my bow in the other hand, and I ran across the avalanche slide and came up from below him. And I expected for him to kind of wander past me about 35, 40 yards, and I'd shoot him again and hopefully get the circus over with. And I get up to this hogback and no bear, there's nothing. And so I'm just looking around, and I mean, by this time, this bear's been wounded for about 24 hours and he was pretty weak. And so I waited there for about a minute, and he never came over the rise, nothing. And so I was like, well, he's got to be up there, or he went up the ridge. And so I just started creeping up the hogback. And as I'm just creeping up, a little more is getting exposed, a little more. I can see more. I can see kind of the flat up there. And at 18 yards right in front of me, he's laying down behind a deadfall with a couple logs across it, like a couple trees growing up. And I could see him in the notch of the trees. And he's facing away from me. And so I was like, well, I got a little window to shoot through at 18 yards. I'm definitely going to be more accurate with my bow. And so he was laying down, but he was maneuvering and just uncomfortable, I could see. And so I shot him quartering away, and I hit him a little high. And he just, like you said, he growled and was spinning around, biting at where I just shot him. And I just dropped my bow in front of me and pulled out my pistol. And my phone was in my left pocket. And so I had my 45 in my right hand, and I'm going to pull out my phone, and I'm just watching him. And I almost get my phone out, and I look down to turn it on, and I look back up, and this is just a split second. And he looks up at me, locks on, and just full blown run. Just here he comes. There's no stopping him. So I drop my phone, I pull up, and boom, I shoot, and he jumps up over the log. I think I hit him in the leg. There was like a random hole in his leg, but he jumps down, and I mean that he's coming. Like you say, once they get locked on you, it doesn't matter how many times you shoot or how scary it be. He's coming to eat you. And so I just waited him out. I'm sure you've had the same thought process, and you've had these encounters. And so you have, over the years, you're thinking about what you would do if a bear charged. And so I already knew what to do. And I figured that if I was going to kill this bear, if I was going to have one good opportunity to kill it, it would be you have one shot, and it's probably at like 7 feet, 8 feet to hit him in the forehead, in the brain, and to kill him. And especially with this little 3-inch 45 that I had, you're not going to be very accurate with that. So yeah, he just full blown run down the hill, head down, and I just waited him out. I waited until he was 8 feet away, and I pulled up with the 45 and shot. You got about a tennis ball sized kill zone on his forehead, maybe a little bigger. And he nosedived and did a somersault and flopped down and died on top of my bow. And I just stepped out of the way. And there he was, dead at my feet, just twitching dead on top of my bow, like he was cuddling with my bow.
Oh my gosh, Dan, that is wild. Man, yeah, well, you handled the situation a little bit better than I, like waiting for your shot and putting one good shot in him. Like, you kept your composure really well, and you actually looked at your sights.
Yeah. No, I waited him out, and it was weird because, in reality, it's just a second or two, but it seemed like everything happened in slow motion. And he had his eyes down, like his nose down. And so I just had all this real estate, I feel like, to shoot him in the forehead. And when he's coming just straight at me, it's almost like it's a stationary target because he's not moving laterally. He's just right at you. And so, yeah, I just like stared down the spot, and I waited for him 6, 7, 8 feet. Boom, dead.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't even get time to think about it, do you? It's all reactionary, right? And
Yes.
so like you're just your instincts kind of take over. You don't think, you're not nervous or anything, or you do think, but everything's happening so quick that you're just reacting. You make
Yep.
that shot and he lands on your bow, and then how bad did you start shaking?
Yeah, I didn't really shake at all. At the no, I lied. I did shake a little bit, and I was just like, more of just like in shock, like what just happened, and I was yelling for my camera guy. By that time, he had heard me, obviously heard me shooting, and he was already coming. But yeah, it didn't really soak in till later that night. I'm talking to my dad or friends or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, did you, buck fever? Did you get nervous?" And I was like, "Ah, not really. Like, it was kind of cool."
I know it didn't stop me from bear hunting or scare me to have a close encounter like that. Like it just felt like well, that's bear hunting, that's dangerous game. I handled the situation, I need a better shot process. Wish I would have shot a little bit better, but I did get some lead into him and stopped the charge, and I did my job. So yeah, when I got done, like I was just all psyched with the encounter and harvesting a bear, and it didn't really set in like I'm super dangerous or reckless or anything. Like it just felt like I was in the woods reacting to the situation that came my way, and that's just what happened, and I handled it, and it was a done deal. I was still excited, but it doesn't stop me from bear hunting at all. If anything, it lights the fire to bear hunt a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I think we definitely are cut from the same cloth. But yeah, good reactions, man. What an exciting hunt! There isn't a more exciting way to end a hunt, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ideally, you don't want to have a situation like that and put yourself in a dangerous situation. And yeah, man, sometimes that happens. And heck, if you're out there long enough, uh, man, I mean, it happens eventually.
Yeah, especially with the bow and arrow and these bears. And me and you are such bow guys that we love the craft of bow hunting. We love getting close. Even on bears, like it'd be way easier to kill a giant bear with the rifle. You just have to see less of them and you got more range. But there's something so exciting and so thrilling about trying to get close. But when you get close and put an arrow in them, buckle up. Like you're in for a rodeo. Like most of the time they'll go away from you, but boy, if they start in your direction, and then like I had another one that I had to hit with a second arrow where I wasn't carrying my pistol, and I made that shot and it was a little bit back like liver, and he disappeared down below me, and then I couldn't hear him running anymore. So I knew he was right below me, but there was a big tree in my way. Knocked another arrow, and a few seconds later he's running up by me. He doesn't even know I'm there. He's just running to go die or go be wounded, and I huffed at him. Never huff at a bear that's running towards you. Then he pinned his ears and locked onto me, and I barely got my bow back. And I always thought I'd shoot a bear in the chest, but they sit so low to the ground when they're charging. So just like you said, with their nose down and they're all forehead and back right there, like
Yep.
I was able to put that arrow and put it behind his head, through his neck, down through his vitals, and he turned and rolled. So that's the second one that's charged me out of the 6 or 7 that I've killed with my bow. So
Wow.
you know I'd say it's like probably around a 25% chance that you hit one with a bow on the ground, spot and stock. Like that thing can come at you.
Yep. Yep. For sure. So
Oh,
what happened with yours this year then? You got some shots on him and he just ran off and died, or?
so that was that one. So snuck up, put a good arrow in him, and then came my direction. And same thing. I had the pistol in one hand and my bow in the other hand. I drew my pistol after I put an arrow in him. He's spinning and roaring at the arrow. I dropped my bow so I could get 2 hands on my pistol, and right at that time he comes right over the hill running right at me. And so yeah, I started backing up, throwing lead, and then hit him and knocked him down once, and then hit him again and killed him right there. So yeah, I killed him right in front of me at about same as you, like 6-10 feet, or maybe even a little
Wow.
bit farther than yours, because I was
Wow.
backing up as I went. But yeah, I mean it was a close encounter inside 10 yards where I hit him and where he died.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
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 And he was hit pretty bad, and I could see blood coming from his nose from the arrow. So I know I got both lungs. I know he was hurt pretty bad. But boy, he got, when he was coming at me, it sure felt like full speed. It was like I hadn't even ran an arrow through him.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. That's why I was like shocked that this bear had all the energy that he had, just a full blown charge, so much power in him. Wow.
Oh, that's wild. Oh man.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, I really wanted to get you on to talk elk hunting, but I had to hear your bear story. That is so wild, Dan. Way to keep your composure, make a good shot, harvest a good bear. Man, that's as exciting as it gets. But I really want to talk about elk hunting as me and you kind of have a different tactic for elk. So there's a lot out there on calling bulls, and it's really effective. But as you get into some of these high pressure elk, and I find like as you get into some of these older herd bulls, like you have to catch those bulls at the exact right mood or the exact right temperament to be able to call them in. And that may only happen one or two times during the season. But when you go at these elk and you really try to go at them silently, not let them know you're there and spot and stalk them, man, is it efficient for these herd bulls is what I've found. And I know you hunt them that same way, right? That's what
Yep.
you believe in, the spot and stalk style for these elk?
Yeah, yeah. I just hate to, find a bull elk and you can't call him in or he's not responsive. And so if you're relying 100% on calling, you have to go find another bull and find one that wants to play. And so, these guys that are calling these bulls in, they're covering a ton of country and finding bulls that are receptive and willing to come in. And, and that's great. That's definitely an effective tactic, but I just hate walking past bulls to find bulls, you know? And so yeah, no, I liked if there's a bull that isn't receptive to calling, I'm going to stalk them just like I would a mule deer or an axis buck or anything.
Well, and it's good to have all the tools in your toolbox, as I know you do, as you know how to bugle and know how to cow call. But over the years, like you say, these bigger herd bulls, I just find that I was calling in a lot of satellite bulls. And I
Yeah.
was looking, I'm always looking for a mature 6 point, but the bull I really want to kill is the giant herd bull with all the cows. Those bulls, they just get educated on public land without a special tag or deep in the wilderness or catching that bull in the right mood. Like they just don't call in that easy. And so for me to not let that bull know I'm even in the area, and then just to be able to move around them, like you say, and it's a little bit different stalking techniques. They're they're not quite as switched on as say an axis deer, but there's always more eyes. There's always a bunch of cows. You hardly ever find a bull solo to stalk, and so you may have 20, 30 eyes that are watching you as you're stalking. And so for me, I like to I treat it a little bit different as I almost like coyote or shadow the herd for a while until I see my opportunity to close in. Do you do the same thing?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. It depends on the situation and everything, but yeah, that's what you got to do is just shadow them and wait for your opportunity to strike. Absolutely.
Yeah, so on elk, it's a moving stock, and so elk are always moving, and they're moving from feeding to bedding, but they just love to cover miles in elevation, and so a lot of times when you catch these elk, you don't catch them just bedded or just hanging out in a spot. Like they're usually moving. Sometimes you catch them feeding, mornings and evenings, but even as they're feeding, they're just moving through meadows and moving to different locations. So I find it's like a moving stock. And so for me, I like a lightweight pack that really cinches good to my back that I don't have to take off to stalk. I don't take off my shoes to stalk because inevitably what happens is I'll take off my shoes, I'll make a stalk, the elk will keep moving, and then I have a decision to either go miles in my socks or in my stocking shoes or to go back and get my shoes like every time. And so I like to just stalk in like running shoes or really lightweight, nimble where I can feel the ground. And then I
Yep.
like to leave my pack on. Do you do the same thing when you're hunting them?
Yep, yep, no, absolutely, and especially with elk, they're kind of unlike anything else you'll hunt when you using a tactic like that with stalking. So yeah, light pack, tennis shoe type shoe, or some of these companies make lightweight hikers. The Zamberlins of last year were really good. I just go as light a shoe as possible And yeah, like you say, you only make that mistake once where you take off your shoes when you're stalking elk, and then you have to decide on how far you want to go in your socks.
Right? Those Zamberlins are making some good boots. I just got the new ones this year. So I was running those Urine 252s last year. I just love
Yeah.
them. They felt like
Yep.
a tennis shoe, and then I heard they discontinued them, and I was like, oh no, I love those boots. But I got the new ones. Man, are they making a good boot? It's just the perfect combination of lightweight, flexibility, and it's got like a little bit of stiffness to it for backpacking and side hilling and things. I think they're making the perfect boot.
Yeah, no, I was actually, like you said, slightly disappointed that they're not making the urine anymore. But man, the boot that they came out with this year, like you say, I think it's even better. It's a one piece design. It's just going to hold together better, and yeah, I think it's going to be great. It's like the Trail Light Evo is what it is.
Yeah, the
Eh,
320 Traillight
yeah,
Evo GTX like
yeah,
comes in right around 2 pounds. A low height hiking boot, and it's always like everybody has personal preference on stiffness and what they
yep.
like. But yeah, they seem to be like a really good fit for me too. I really like
Yep.
them.
Yep. And it's just better. It's a one piece leather design, so that's less points of failure and less places for water to get in. So I'm excited to use them this year. It's definitely going to be an upgrade.
Yeah, but I'm with you. So never take off your shoes, never take off your pack. And there is a situation for doing that. Like sometimes I'll shadow an elk herd, and it seems like so hunting elk is a moving stock, but one of my best tactics is to find them in the morning, shadow the herd, and it seems like once they get to their bedding grounds, they really start mingling around and feeding again, and they really, they stop traveling the miles of distance, and it's almost like they're hanging out, getting ready to bed. That's such a great time to move in on a bull. And then sometimes you'll even bed them down, and I don't like to go into them. Most of the time I won't go in on them in the thick timber unless I know exactly where they're at, unless I can see a couple bodies or see that bull bedded. I really know their exact position, and then and only then, sometimes I'll take off my shoes because it's like the afternoon, all the elk are bedded, they're really paying attention to noise, and I know the elk aren't traveling, and I really want to take my time and move in. Have you ever ran into those situations where you will like go in quieter, take off your pack and shoes, or?
Yeah. No, I have in those same situations. I was thinking of scenarios like that in the past that I've encountered, and absolutely, I've shadowed herds until they're staging to start laying down, if you will, and that's a great time to get in close and to really shed some gear and move in quietly. And sometimes it's hard to know when that's going to be, because man, I've followed herds all morning, and they finally don't start laying down until 10:30 or 11 o'clock after they've covered 2 miles from their feeding area. So it's kind of hard to gauge, but just experience helps with that. And yeah, I've done that and killed a couple bulls in their bedding area. And luckily, during the rut, most of the cows will lay down first, and then the herd bull, he'll go around and check the cows. And that's a perfect scenario for me for stalking a herd of elk. Thinking back 2 years ago, I did that. It was like a 350 bull, maybe a 340 bull, a really nice big 6 point. But he had 35 cows or so, and everybody was laid down in a ponderosa patch. It was like thick ponderosa, short ones, and he was the only elk on his feet, just cruising around and checking cows. And so, man, I think I got within 50 yards of the closest cow, and that's all you can ask of yourself when you're stalking a herd of elk. You get within 50 yards, it's just a matter of time before he wanders around and checks the cows and makes a mistake and presents you with a shot. And sometimes the wind can get you, like what happened in that scenario. But yeah, I love that tactic right there, Brian, for sure.
Yeah, isn't that it? No matter like when they're bedding down, or even if when you're stalking elk, that's what you try to do is just put yourself in range of the cows, and then let that bull just wander around them. And a lot of times that bull will stay on the other side of the herd, and but eventually he works around and checks those different cows. So that's exactly right. Is I stalk in not looking to get a shot on the bull exactly. Like, I mean, that is my end goal, but I'm just looking to put myself in range of those cows and then let the situation develop and see what he does. And even, you talk about the cows laying down first and the bull's checking his cows. That bull will get up throughout the day and check those cows too. If you can just get yourself in range or get yourself close, like that bull will get up periodically and check those cows, and sometimes he even gets fired up. I've had him middle of the day, 12 o'clock, him totally walk away from the herd and go find a wallow a mile away and then return to the cows. So a lot of times these bulls will get fired up in the middle of the day, start bugling and rutting around, go hit a wallow, go find water, work around his cows, look for more cows. Like, I find they're fairly active in the middle of the day, or can be during the rut.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Same here. And if they're not going to a wall, they'll at least be up on their feet, checking cows and whatnot. Yeah, it's just a matter of patience and knowing that, I guess, because if you're just starting out elk hunting or haven't had many encounters with scenarios like that, your patience is the virtue and is your best friend on most elk situations when you're stalking a herd.
Yeah, the longer you can play the game, the more chance you have of something happening or that bull working into you. So I'm the same way. I like to play
Yep.
really patiently and play the game. And so there's that tactic of shadowing the herd, trying to get them to where their bedding zone and trying to make a play then. And winds are definitely a big challenge in the mountains. Another thing I like to do is like try to get in front of the herd. Those elk are always moving. A lot of times you can see them a ways off and not go right for the herd, but try to get in front of them or get to a ridge or get to a saddle in front of them. Like, try to be where the herd's moving to instead of chasing the herd.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And it's hard to know that when you hunt an area for the first time, but I think that's your biggest advantage if you can hunt an area year after year, because you'll start to see areas where they like to bed and where they like to feed. And so where they're going in the mornings, and then you place yourself in those advantageous positions first thing in the morning to catch them when they're going to bed like that. So yeah, one of the biggest advantages to me to spot and stalk elk hunting is hunting the same area year after year if you can.
Oh, you're so right. You learn where to look for elk and where elk like to hang out, and they're nomadic by nature. You can go into a drainage that was really good last year, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's no elk in there, as it's timing. They were there before, after, and so, but you're right. When you're in an area and you know an area and you know where they like to feed and they like to bed, like, yeah, you have such an advantage over going into an area and trying to figure it out for the first time.
Yep. Yep. And that's like you said, you don't want to be chasing a herd in all practical reality. You want to be cutting them off. You want to be in front of them. And I've done that just maybe, I was thinking about my 2017 Wyoming bull. I got on a herd and there were so many cows that I just couldn't get close. And there was one herd bull, and I kind of got a feeling for the direction that they were moving because I knew where they wanted to go eventually, even though they were way up on the mountain. And then, yeah, I had the terrain. Luckily, they were feeding slow enough, but I just ran around and got in front of them, and they all fed right past me, and I shot the herd bull. Got lucky a little bit, but yeah, if you can cut them off, that's kind of the ace in the hole as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, a little luck never hurts either. It's always nice
Yeah.
when it goes your way. There's so
Yeah.
many like unlucky or bad luck, so many bad luck situations that happen when elk hunting. You're like, wow, man, why did that wind have to swirl, or why did that cow have to come over the ridge right where I was staying, or whatever the case is. So when you get a little luck that goes your way, that always helps.
Absolutely, you got to take it
Yeah,
because
that's right.
a lot of it is left up to luck. If I don't know, lack of better terms, but funny things happened last year. I was stalking a herd and this bull pushed a cow up past me at 17 yards, and this bull had been going nonstop for 45 minutes, and the one spot that he stopped to take a break was right in front of me with a tree over his vitals, and he stood there for 2 minutes while I was at full draw. And, I mean, what are the odds of that? Come on, give me a break. And I never killed that bull. He just stopped in just the wrong spot, and I was at full draw for 2 minutes, and his cows fed towards me, and they had me pinned at 8 yards, and I eventually had to let down. So,
they,
man.
They have such a knack for making the right moves, stopping with trees in their vitals, and they're tough to get to stop too. When they're chasing a cow around, they're so engaged in what they're doing that they'll walk or they'll run right through your opening that you were going to shoot through, you know. And sometimes you make sometimes I'll try to cow call just with my mouth, just and try to get them to stop in my opening, but.
Yep.
But that can work against you too, as now all the elk know where you're at or are keyed
Exactly.
into, you know. So it's just tough. I think the best case is to wait for that shot, but sometimes those bulls just don't stop moving or don't give you that window. Like, it's one thing to get in range of a bull or get in range of elk. It's another thing of getting a good clean shot off. Those things,
Oh, yeah.
they just have a knack for making the right moves.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, another thing, or I'd say when I've killed the majority of my bulls, I'll say. So I love hunting mornings, but what I am really effective hunting in the evening. I love that last light play on elk, and so sometimes I'll see these elk. Like I really like when I'm spotting and stalking. I like to hunt elk in their feeding features. I like to hunt them in the open meadows where I can be moving through the timber, but keep an eye on these elk, and I'll follow them into the timber or cut them off in the timber. You know, of course, some of your hunting has to take place in the sparse timber and things, but I love to catch them in the feeding features. So one of my go-to moves is to just watch those elk, and a lot of times you see these elk miles off and I'll watch them, and I'll even watch them put away and try to get the timber patch that they're in, and just keep eyes on them. And then what I try to do is I try to play them in the evening where they're going to come out and feed. So I try to get a vantage point back off and away from the elk where my scent isn't in there, but I'm just getting a vantage point to kind of watch them come out into this meadow. And so I usually, like, there's a better chance that the elk will come out in the same meadow than a different meadow. You never quite know what elk are going to do, but as I watch them feed a meadow in the morning, a lot of times I'm going to play that meadow in the evening. Now, it doesn't always work. Like, I'd say it isn't even 51%. It's like maybe half the time they come out in that same meadow, but that's usually my best bet, is to play them in that feeding feature. And so I'll grab a vantage point, and then I just love when they come out in the evening, they start filtering out and they're feeding out into this meadow. Now they're a place where I can play ball, and in the evening those shadows start getting long, and I get that downhill thermal, that
Yep.
steady wind, just like you had on your bear, just like I had on my bear. Like that evening play, all of a sudden you can eliminate the wind factor, which is giant in the mountains, and then make my play on them in that low light and that last light in the evening. Man, I've killed a lot of bulls in the evening that way. I love to play that tactic. Do you ever play that last light move on those elk?
Yep. Yeah. Perfect example was last year, general tag in Wyoming, and I spotted 2 6 points, and they were probably a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles away, way over there across the drainage, other side. And I saw the general area where they went to bed, and it was super thick, aspens and snowberry brush, really thick country and just noisy country to move around in. And so I kind of got everything pinpointed as best as I could on where the elk probably were and where I needed to be. And they were pretty active. The bull was bugling. I could see him over there. And, that was at first light. So I was in position by 4 or 5 o'clock that afternoon. And I was just kind of on a vantage point, maybe 400 to 600 yards away from where I thought the herd was. And it was really windy. And once again, super thick, so I didn't have eyes on them. And, they got up, and you could tell by the progression of the bugles from that bull where, he'd start off with a bugle every, 4 or 5 minutes. And I'm like, okay, so he's over there. So I'm getting things kind of pinpointed. And then all of a sudden he's bugling every minute or maybe every 30 seconds. So I'm like, okay, so they're probably on the move. And sure enough, I just stayed put, and I was just listening. And this bull was pushing his cows to me, to a little meadow that I had set up on. And this is a little periphery meadow to the main park where they were feeding. And so I was like, this is perfect. It's still early. It's 5:30. This is a little patch of feed, this little tiny hillside that it's a perfect staging area for them to hit and to start feeding before they head out to the main meadow, probably at dark. And so by that tactic right there, Brian, I put myself in the right situation, and they popped right out at that park. And once they got to that park, that bull just shut up and he started feeding with his 4 cows. And I just slipped in on him. I just worked into the edge of the meadow, got to the bottom of the hill. It was the shady side of the mountain. So thermals had started probably about 6 o'clock by now. And, I waited him out, but his cows kind of fed off and he did not bugle. He was kind of locked in, and it was so thick. I just knew he had to be in there somewhere. So I'm just waiting. And then at 50 yards, he just lights up. His cows are like fed to the far side of the meadow, and he lights up. He's been 50 yards from me for 45 minutes, and I didn't know it. But I had his exit route covered. I could kill him anywhere he left that park. And so I just believed that he was there. I was like, there's no way he would have like gone over the hill or gone over the other side. That's what I was thinking in my mind anyway. There's no way he would have left these cows because he was super aggressive. And sure enough, he got up and he fed and he walked right through one of my shooting lanes that I already had rehearsed on one of the cows. And I already had the program down, so it was just robot mode. He walked through, I drew back, had my range, pinwheeled him. And that's a good example right there of just playing that feeding area in the evening, and it worked perfectly.
Perfectly played. So much of it are the little nuances, the moves, and letting your instincts take over. Like, sitting there for 45 minutes knowing that bull was there. And like you say, you start to second guess yourself, like maybe he left, maybe he's over there, maybe I should go up and go get into him. But to trust your instincts and stay patient and know that you had that bull cornered. It's the whole reason why you killed that bull. But so much of it is about those little moves you make once you're inside range or once you're getting close.
Yep. That's the only reason I killed that bull is that patience, and I wanted to move. I wanted to go try to find him, but I was just like, man, if I'm crunching around in this stuff and they're going to hear me, number one, I would have to take off my boots, and odds are I'm going to spook them. And what worst case scenario tonight, I stay put and that bull isn't here. Number one, I don't spook them, right? They're feeding away. So I don't spook them, call it a night. I'm not blowing these elk out of the country. I'm probably going to have a play the next morning. And so that's the upside. The downside would be, you don't get your bull that night, but you force something, you blow them out, and then you're starting from scratch the next day. So that's huge as well.
Oh, great decision making. Yeah, when elk relocate, they don't relocate a drainage over it. Like they go miles. They are so tough to find after they're spooked. And you're right, like with all those eyes and all those cows, like they're not as there's not as wiry as some of the other species, but they catch movement really well. And so, like, as you're trying to move in and there's 20 cows in a bull, you just can't force the issue. They just catch you, especially like through that timber and things. They just catch a little bit of movement, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're busted. So you're right. You really got to play them tentatively. But I think that's the beauty of elk hunting. Like, you got to go get into elk to go kill one, and then once you're into elk, it's all based on your decision-making process. It's all based on your instincts and experience and the moves you make, and that's the whole beauty of it. That's why I love elk hunting or love getting into them, and when it comes together, there's just there's nothing better.
Yeah, no, there's no better feeling, and like you say, you can't really you can't say that every situation is going to be like that when they hit a park like that. Every situation is different. And so you can't tell a beginner or somebody that's just started elk hunting that this is how you do it, because it may have worked that time and it may work, 4 years later, but it's not necessarily going to work every time. I was talking to a buddy the other day, and this is kind of a quick rabbit trail, but the engine that I built for my Duster, I rebuilt a 360, and you have all this time, all this effort, and all this hard work, and like reading and studying, and you're putting this engine together. and then it comes down to the moment of truth when you turn the key to fire it up. It's like killing something with your bow, like killing an elk with your bow. The sense of satisfaction, the sense of that, man, I earned this. I worked so hard for this opportunity. I worked so hard for this, and it worked. It's like that's kind of the feeling that you live for.
Man, that's it. Well, and spot and stalking these elk, like guys really like to call, and I think they like to call because it's exciting. It's you're working through the woods, and even if you don't see an elk, if you get an elk to answer you, like you're engaging with an elk back and forth, and all of a sudden you're chasing that elk. You have excitement for that morning, and you may not catch up with that bull, but you're interacting back and forth, and hearing that bugle and that rut is so exciting. And so I think guys don't want to lose that connection with those elk, that's how they know how to elk hunt, and that back and forth and talking to them. I mean, it is one of the most exciting, thrilling ways to hunt elk. That there's no doubt about it. When you call in a bull and he's fired up and bugles and comes in, like there's nothing better. But I still get that same excitement, that same thrill. I'm still engaged in the rut in these bulls. Just like that bull of yours when you heard him getting up and you heard him bugling, and all of a sudden he's bugling every 30 seconds, and you know he's moving his cows, and you know that he's coming towards this meadow. You also know that he has no idea you're even in the country. It's just
Yep.
elk being elk at that point. But I think there's guys get hooked on that little bit of adrenaline rush that you get talking back and forth to these bulls. And a lot of times you're talking back and forth to this bull, you're just letting him know you're there. A lot of times he's just grabbing his cows and working away from you. I've seen it, time and time again, where the first sound you make, whether it's a cow call or a bugle, the bull knows that the gig's up, and he's starting to gather up these cows, and they're starting to move away from you. And you may not know it, but you're bugling back and forth to this bull, and you're chasing him through these drainages and these timber. The whole time he's just trying to get away from you, get his cows away from you. But that spot and stalk game, hunting elk during the rut, I mean, to me, it is just as exciting. Like, I can hear 300 bugles in a night. I never made a peep, but these bulls are fired up back and forth, and they're fighting, and they're working their cows. You actually get more time to observe the elk in their natural state of the rut, or that natural environment where they're not spooked. They're not trying to move away from you. They're just trying to breed and rut and be elk. Like, to me, it's just as exciting. Do you find that same thing, Dan?
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. I find like calling in an elk and having that experience, which I've had before, it's a very small portion of what elk hunting really is and what it takes to be really successful as an elk hunter. It's just a very small portion. Calling one in, bugling one or cow calling one, because it rarely happens like that. You got to catch them in the right scenario, and whether or not you're in a really limited area or a private ranch, or you catch a bull on the right day, it's possible. But more times than not, it's the exception and not the rule when you're hunting public land and of calling them in. And so, yeah, man, you learn a lot too when you're not interacting with them. So like what you're describing, when bulls are bugling at each other and they probably both have their cows, and they're really non-confrontational. Like most animals are during the rut. They only fight if they have to, or a bear only charges you if he has to. It doesn't happen every time. It happens a fraction of the time. And that's the same with calling a bull in, a confrontational bull in. It just doesn't happen. And they bugle a ton at each other is probably just a posturing stance that they do, and they don't actually bugle and come fight each other, come in to each other in scenarios like that. So yeah, it gives you that opportunity to just observe that. And if you do have that opportunity to see all that bugling like that, yeah, that's what they're doing, is they're just communicating. Hey, dude, I have my cows over here. You have your cows over there. We're both happy. Keep your distance. And I think that's mostly what that is. And like you say, you get too aggressive and you call at them, bugle at them, and press them. 95% of the time, if that bull has cows, he's out of there. He's taking his cows and he's off into other country, avoiding a confrontation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I find too, that they're talking to their cows a lot, they're talking to other bulls and they're sounding off. That's part of their rut. But they're not looking to kill and fight every bull that comes their way. Like you say, they'd avoid it if they can and just take their cows to a different area. And there is those times of the year where they sort it out and sort out their cows, and bulls will fight for cows. But the majority of the time, they know what the bigger, more mature bull is. They know what who the herd bull is, and that he has those cows. And then the satellite's job is to try to steal some of those cows away and work. And you get so many great opportunities when you're spotting and stalking elk. Like working a herd, it's amazing, those satellite bulls. They just hang around the perimeter, a couple hundred yards away, and kind of coming in and out of the herd. So a lot of times when you put yourself close, you may have only seen the herd and that herd bull, but there could be 2 or 3 other 6-points around there that are just hanging close by the herd, trying to gather up some of the random cows or steal a cow. So a lot of times you're stalking that herd, and all of a sudden here's a bull and he's walking right into you, and it's not even the bull you were hunting. I find that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times when guys are bugling in bulls, that's the scenario. They got a satellite bull that is looking for cows, for cows to steal, or the opportunity to sneak in and breed one while the herd bull's busy breeding another cow, or whatever. And those bulls are usually more willing to play than a bull with a bunch of cows already. But yeah, I mean, I'll say it too. I've killed a lot of satellite bulls over the years too, just because it's easier. It's the opportunity that is in front of your face first, so you're going to take it, especially when you're hunting public land.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Man, it sure is fun to be able to move around these things, and I just like moving around and not letting them know I'm there. Like getting into a really good elk drainage and just nothing's blown up. Nothing knows there's a human hunting them. They're just in there rutting, and you just get to play ball with them. And I'll take my chances that way. And I really believe that spot and stalking elk, like you're able to target those bigger, more mature bulls. And yeah, sometimes there's a nice satellite 6 that works in front of you or by yourself that I just can't resist or whatever. But most of the time, I'm trying to kill that big herd bull, and I think when you're spotting and stalking, you're really focusing on the biggest bulls on the mountain, the most mature bulls, the ones with the cows.
Yep, I'd say so, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Well, I know you're an absolute elk fanatic like I am. What do you have coming up this year? What tags have you drawn?
Well, I did draw Wyoming, so I'm pretty pumped about that. It's
A good tag?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's an area that has genetics, and so yeah, a good chance at Big Bull is just as good as anywhere in the country. So I'm pretty excited about that. I do have a Montana General this year. I'll probably be actually hunting somewhere around Bozeman this year. Got some friends over there. So I'll be in Montana this year a little bit later, and I drew a Wyoming antelope, and still waiting on Montana antelope, and of course Wyoming general deer, and that's about it. I didn't draw anything else anywhere else as far as limited entry goes. So yeah, one draw tag and the rest generals.
Yep. Well, you know where your energy is going to be spent, and those general tags are nothing new to you. That's what I've got a bunch of this year too. I did draw a Montana special tag, but it was an easier bow tag to draw, and then gonna go hunt Idaho over the counter and go chase some elk down there. And man, I'm just super excited. I cannot wait for elk season. I just did a scouting trip a handful of days ago, working some mountains and looking at some different vantage points and a different place to go hunt elk. So man, I'm super excited to cut these legs loose and get after these bulls.
Nice. Yeah, me too. That's what I love all types of bow hunting. I love mule deer hunting, but when it comes to September, I don't think it can be beat as far as something to bow hunt. Is elk with a bow in September. That's what life's all about to me.
Yeah, man, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I love muleys. I love hunting everything with my bow, and I hate to even pick a side, whether it's muleys or elk, because I love both of them so much. But you're right. Come September, there is nothing better than hunting elk. They are so large, antlers that stick 5 feet over their head, the bugle, the rut. It's the most thrilling, exciting hunting out there. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I cut my teeth hunting elk and been hunting them for over 20 years now, and every year I get more and more fired fired up to chase them, and there's just absolutely nothing like it, and they are so difficult. A big mature 6-point on public land is so difficult, especially like these general season tags, and you make it look easy year after year killing a nice 6-point, but man, it isn't. It is tough out there. So yeah, I'm just ready to start the grind and start putting in the miles and chasing these things around, see if a guy can earn an opportunity.
Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. And it never gets old, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thanks as always, man, for being on the podcast. I just love talking to you. I love getting fired up about elk. So I'll be looking at my maps as soon as I get off this call, looking for where I'm gonna head. But yeah, thanks so much, man, and congratulations on that bear. Way to keep your cool in that moment of intense, like the adrenaline had to be off the charts. But congratulations on that bear and your elk tags this year, man. I can't wait to see what you turn up.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. The same to you. I'll be following you too, and I'm sure you'll have another good year as well.
Yeah, well, and if you get some time in Montana, I'll be around the Ennis area. You said you're around that Bozeman area. Give me a shot. I got my Hawaii buddies are going to come up this year. I'm not sure what dates you're thinking about coming up, but
Nice.
make sure to shoot me a line when you're coming down. Maybe we can hook up for a day or two of hunting.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Probably second half of September for me. So yeah, I'll be in touch.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be around. So yeah, give me a shout. We'll talk soon. And yeah, thanks again.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Brian.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, that's a wrap. Oh, I really appreciate Dan coming back on. Yeah, just it's good to know all the different techniques and tactics and have all of those available in your toolbox when you're elk hunting. So calling is super effective, and a lot of big bulls get killed calling, but this just gives you another option and another way to move. And I think too, knowing how to move with elk, it only helps your calling game. Knowing, getting to the right spots and reading where they're moving to and their behavior, if you do like calling, it only enhances that. So anyways, thanks to Dan for being on. Great guest, great friend. Yeah, I just can't wait to see what Dan turns up this year. He's just a great bow hunter. So thanks again to him. Thanks again to our sponsors. Thanks Sportsman's Warehouse. They just run a great operation, staff full of knowledgeable people with all the best name brands in there that you can touch, feel, look through, try on. So make sure to check them out. Taito knives, just my favorite lightweight, ultra sharp knife. I just love this replaceable blade knife, to be able to process these game animals and then to only have just a handful of ounces, for your knife and your blades and everything. It's just absolutely amazing. It's changed the game for me. And also the longer blade ones. I really like those ones as well for slicing jerky real thin. And so I've been using those as well. So thanks to Taito Knives. And I think I finally got it all finished up. I'm out of here. So it'll be a couple weeks. Gonna go hunt Colorado. Gonna go hunt Wyoming. And got all my stuff done, everything taken care of. It's always so tough to get out of the house when you're trying to leave. And anymore, I try not to get stressed out, and I try to start early, get packed, and just take care of everything I can take care of. And if I can't, it seems like there's always something that comes up or some meeting you need to get to. And I just tell people I'm going to be gone anymore. I used to stress out about it, but I'll just take care of it and get it done. And so we had the Three Rivers guy over here today, and he was up in the internet. I don't know why my internet's just slow for where I'm at, but they were able to, I don't know, put in a new modem that they could run off. It's already over my head, but they're just getting me quicker internet and a bigger broadband, I believe. So it'll be better all the way around. It takes so long to load up these podcasts. Finally, I can load them up quickly. So anyways, we're redoing that, and I'm helping him out here and there. And so he goes outside to make the adjustments in the box, and I got a wasp nest in the box. So, down to the hardware store, get some wasp spray and throw on my jacket and go out there and spray those things off, and then they're just still swarming around, still spraying them, and they're starting to get pretty thick. And then I notice there's another nest above on the soffit. Like, I don't have a rundown house, you guys. Like, I keep it really nice. But these things, it must just be the time of year. Like, I hadn't even seen that nest. I shoot my bow out there all the time, but it's just always something when you're trying to leave. So we got the wasp taken care of, got the internet taken care of, got this podcast taken care of. I'm going to do a live one, or not a live one, but I'm going to do a recording tonight with Cody Rich and and Ryan Lampers, we're going to go do it in Cody Rich's new studio in Bozeman. So really excited for that. Going to drive up there here. Oh gosh, I got to leave here in about a half an hour. So I better get this thing loaded up and released out to you guys. I am so fortunate. Get to go bow hunting like I do. It's that time of year. I know you guys have your hunts that you're on right now, that you've been on, the hunts that you're looking forward to. Man, hunt safe, hunt hard, and enjoy the process. So I love you guys. Thanks for all the support on the podcast, the social media. Make sure to send me your photos when you're successful this season. I'd love to see it. And also, we've got another one coming up on. I have Todd Helms back on about articles and photos and support photos. It's a great one. It's coming up. Be on the lookout for that. But yeah, if you harvest a good animal this year, make sure you take photos and remember it. That's all I got. I'm out of here. So we'll check in with you guys in a couple weeks.